Hello, everybody. I hope everyone had a good couple weeks. I did not. I had the worst flu I've ever had in my whole entire life. I hope you guys stay clear of it. It also might have been fish that my boyfriend cooked me. He refuses to believe it was the fish, but you never know. It was a little funky. Okay, today we're going to be talking about ADHD and the workplace. And then this is where I threw the strategies in as well. So, obviously, all these strategies are very important, can be used in the workplace, but can also be used in everyday life. So, we're going to talk about the challenges that we go through in the workplace, the strengths that we have in the workplace. We're going to talk about accommodations a little bit, and then we'll go into some strategies. What was I just going to say? Oh, just remember, you might not deal with any of these. Workplace is such a broad term. So, like, someone might be in the trades. Lots of these are kind of office focused, but I've tried to make sure they're not all office focused. You can totally email me if you're like, none of these apply to me, but I still need help. Like, I would love to brainstorm some things. So, the challenges that people with ADHD can go through in the workplace. So if you're an inattentive type, you would struggle with your attention to detail and sustained attention, so focus. And if you're a hyperactive type, you could go through lots of fidgeting, lots of restlessness, interrupting, blurting, or talking too much, or waiting or staying focused. And if you're both, you can have all of those things. I struggle with every single one of those things. I'm a lot better at the interrupting, blurting, talking too much now because I'm a little more self-aware than I used to was. But I think back to some of the things that I had like blurted out in the middle of a meeting, and I'm like, I want to jump off a cliff thinking back to that. So all these things like can lead you to have issues with task completion, time management, focus, organization, and then relationship challenges with your coworkers or your bosses. Strengths in the workplace, super fun. So, in a nutshell, we are so creative, we're so imaginative, we're so resilient. That is so important. I know I asked my friend the other day if she could describe me in 3 words, and one of her words was resilient. And I was like, that is so nice. We go through a lot of crap, and especially having a late diagnosis, like you are resilient people. And I hope that you guys think that about yourselves because when she said that to me, I was like, wow. Yeah, I am doing the thing. We're also divergent thinkers, so we do not think like other people. We are great at problem solving and we're super curious. So, this can look like thinking outside the box, connecting patterns and unrelated things for fresh perspectives. I'm not sure if you guys have I connect patterns in my head and freak people out because I'm seeing things that other people aren't seeing. That is something that I do a lot. We come up with novel solutions to problems that people, like a neurotypical person, wouldn't come up with because we think in different ways. Enthusiasm and adaptability, we had to be adaptive our whole life. So that is one of our greatest strengths for sure. Intuition and ability to engage with others. I'm not sure if you guys have ever had like I always tell people that I'm a witch. I have a keen intuition. I have such a gut check. I think that has to do with my spirituality a little bit, but I also think it has to do with ADHD and connecting patterns growing up and noticing things that other people don't notice, being hyper aware of what's going on around me, being hyper focused in on what people are thinking. Like if I was pissing anybody off, like I'm hyper aware of that. So I think people with ADHD have such a huge intuition, and that's like I think, a large strength in the workplace. And then the ability to engage with others. Like, I know this might be hard, and not everyone agrees with this one, but it's not like being great at small talk. It's like when you're excited about a subject, you get that other person excited about that subject, and that's how I kind of see that one. Willingness to take risks, keen intuition and insight, like in the other one, and networking and public speaking. I know that one's kind of a niche one. Not everyone would get drawn to that one, but I know that I thrive in public speaking, so it's one of my strengths for sure. So, if you have ADHD in the workplace, that is a disability. And if you are diagnosed with ADHD, you have a right to have accommodations at work. So, an accommodation is any change in the work environment or the terms of employment that allows a person with limitations in their abilities or who faces barriers from the standard rules and conditions of work to perform their job. Um, so I know that someone in the chat was talking about like how do you advocate for yourself when you're living in a neurotypical world and your brain works differently than maybe your bosses or your employers or your coworkers. I have a couple of stories from myself of disclosing my ADHD and anxiety to my employers. Some are great and some were really awful. So I this is leads me to this question. If you're going to do this, I want you to think about what is your intention behind disclosing to your employer. Because I have done it before where I was just having, really hard day. And I was like, I'm just going to go tell her that I have like big anxiety. I didn't even really know why I was telling her. I was just having a hard day and I just wanted my boss to know. And I just pulled her aside, like off the hallway. And I was like, hey, I was like almost in tears. I was like, just so you know, I'm struggling today. I have really bad anxiety. And this was before I was diagnosed. This is when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. It was actually just my ADHD, but I still have anxiety. So I told her I have really bad anxiety. And this is my first time ever disclosing to an employer. I was quite younger. And she had put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "But you're so young." And then she walked away. It was awful. Um, and like nothing, I didn't even know what I wanted to come out of it, but it was not a good time. I think about it all the time. I don't think that, well, clearly she didn't even know what anxiety was because if she thought just because I'm young, shouldn't have anxiety. Um, yeah, I guess I didn't know what my intention behind doing it was. So another story was when I was in my practicum, and my intention for this was to, hey, if I'm struggling, this is probably why. If I am, saying something that's out of line and I need to be told, this is probably why. So I went to my practicum and it was at a community rehab. So, like where people go for physiotherapy or occupational therapy after surgery or injury. And I had told these girls, my preceptors, they weren't my preceptors, but they were in charge of me. And I said, I have ADHD and anxiety. So if this, or this happens, this is why. I am letting you know because I need to pass. I need to do good in school. So this is why I'm letting you know. They were, oh my, that is so hard for you to tell me that. You sound like you're doing so well. And they were giving me all the praise. And 2 weeks later, they sat me down and told me that people all around the workplace were talking about me and how I came off. And then they wouldn't tell me who it was. And I sat there and said, why the hell did I sit down and feel like I embarrassed myself by telling you guys that I have anxiety and that I have ADHD and sometimes I come off a way that might be unprofessional because I don't know any different sometimes with my impulsivity. When I told them at the end of my practicum that I had disclosed my anxiety to them and then that's what they did to me, their face went white. They were, well, actually there was two girls. One of their faces went white and the other one did not care at all. So the girls that face that went white, I appreciated that and she did apologize to me. I guess my whole thing behind these stories is set your intentions for what you want if you're going to your employer and disclosing. Prepare for a little bit of heartbreak, but don't assume it. I now don't tell really any of my employers unless there is something that I feel is needed to be said for an accommodation. So if my anxiety is really bad and it's hindering my work, I will tell them about it in terms of deadlines. Um, if I have an actual accommodation that I need, I will tell them about my ADHD and that's what I need. But I think it's very, very important to have an intention behind doing it. And if you don't have intentions, you never really know what someone's going to say. You never really know how someone's going to act, and you never really know if someone's going to care. It sounds so sad saying it out loud, and it sounds like this is like the most depressing part of my presentation ever, but it's my experience and it's true. And you know what? I've had experiences where I've had employers with ADHD or employers that are just super understanding and they were the best about it. So it's just preparing for either end of the spectrum. So, what are you entitled to legally? I want to talk about. So, legally, employers do not have to seek out things to help you for work. Legally, they don't have to do that. If you go to them and say you need something and you disclose your disability, then legally they have to. But they don't have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. Legally, they do not have to like seek out accommodations for you. They should. That's the biggest part of in my schooling right now is like that should kind of be part of, maybe the Duty to Accommodate Act, but that's neither here nor there. So, what are you entitled to? They are entitled to provide reasonable accommodations for you if you go to them with what you need. So they can they have to adjust job duties, schedules, or environments to enable employees with disabilities to perform their work. They are legally required to engage in the accommodation progress, so they have to work collaboratively with you to find effective solutions. They ensure no undue hardship. So accommodations must be made unless they cause excessive cost or safety risk. So this is the only reason that they are legally allowed to say no to you, is if they cause excessive cost, or it is a safety risk, or it's just like unable to be done in that line of work. They are legally required to prevent discrimination and harassment, so employees cannot be treated unfairly due to their disability or need for accommodation. They must legally offer flexible work arrangements. So this may include remote work, modified hours, or extended deadlines. Like I said, if it doesn't cause undue hardship or if it is able to be done in that line of work. They must provide you with assistive technologies if you need it. So, like speech to text software, noise canceling headphones, or fidget tools. They must allow for medical and support appointments. So, employees must be able to attend therapy, medical, or counseling sessions as needed. They must maintain your confidentiality. So, they are not allowed to talk about your disability without your consent to anybody else. And they have to legally assess you based on your performance and not your disability. So hiring, promotions, job evaluations, it must be all on skills and job performance and not disabilities. Okay, let's talk about how to go about it. So know your rights. I just talked about a lot of them, but research workplace disability law and company policies before requesting accommodations. In Canada, this is legally they have the duty to accommodate, so legally they have to do that for you. There are some loopholes, I would say, so just make sure you do your research. Be clear and specific. So if you are going to your employer and you're like, look, I'm struggling with this. So what's a good example? I'm just struggling to stay on task. And I really, really could use something to keep me focused. I know when I'm at home, I work really good with being able to listen to white noise on my headphones, and that can kind of zone me in. So if you are going to your employer, be so clear and specific about what your challenge is and then what you need to be able to accommodate it. And one of my biggest pieces of advice is, if you are going to them, go with your answer. I know that they need to go back and forth with you a little bit, and you might not even know the answer. So if you don't have it, then that's fine. But my biggest piece of advice for you in a neurotypical world is go with your challenge and then go with your solution and then say, now do this. So be clear and specific. Explain how your ADHD impacts that work and suggest specific accommodations that will help. Use neutral and solution-oriented language. So frame accommodations as tools for productivity, not as, special treatment. Like, not as, oh, I have this, so I need this. No, I need this to be able to do the job that you hired me for. For example, a structured task list would help me stay on track and meet deadlines more efficiently. Get it in writing. So follow up your verbal conversation with an email summarizing the requests and the agreements. That's just protecting yourself, and then being able to be like, oh, you told me about this. Don't you remember? Here's the email. Use comparisons if needed. So this is a good little strategy that I learned about. Relate accommodations to tools already accepted in the workplace. So example, noise canceling headphones help me focus, just like your ergonomic chair supports physical comfort. So I need to be productive. Buy me these noise canceling headphones, just like you bought yourself and everybody else in the office these nice chairs, respectfully. You can involve HR or an advocate if you feel like your manager would be resistant. You could even send an email to HR and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I plan to go to my boss. I'll follow up with you how it goes. I don't know. We all have had a boss that you just know you dread going into the office. So that's just something that you could do. Be prepared for pushback. Some managers may not understand ADHD accommodations, and be ready with examples of how they improve your productivity. So this is the same as going in with your intention set. If your intention is to get accommodations, then make sure that you're prepared for them to push back, even though legally they're not supposed to. But, there's a little bit of wiggle room around all of this stuff. And especially in a rural town, I know you could go in and then be like, oh, there's no money in the budget for that. Oh, sorry. Well, actually, you need to provide me with this because I've done my research. You could request a trial period. So if your boss is hesitant, you could suggest testing accommodations for a short period of time to prove how effective it would be for you. And prioritize self-advocacy. Speak with confidence and remind yourself that accommodations are a favor. Accommodations are not a favor. They are a right. So you have the right to be good at your job. And they should let you be good at your job in this neurotypical world we live in. So I wrote down some couple of examples of what accommodations could look like. So for scheduling, flexible work hours, work from home options, task variation, being able to alternate between tasks. I know that's kind of job specific, but I would love to do that. Built-in breaks, and built-in breaks by them. Oh yeah, you want built-in breaks? Do it yourself. No, I need you to hold me accountable and build in a break for me. Communication and social interaction, alternative communication methods. So if you struggle with verbal processing, which means if you're hearing directions, it's just not making sense in your head, ask for email or text directions. Or after the verbal, be like, okay, let's sum it up in an email. Do you mind sending that to me? Direct and concise feedback. This is actually something that I didn't even know that I was asking for accommodations for, but I do this in my practicum all the time. I'm like, look, I do best when you tell me right after exactly what I did wrong and exactly what I did right and exactly what you need me to do. Extra processing time in meetings, conflict mediation. So, if you're someone that is having a lot of conflicts at work with your coworkers due to emotional regulation or impulsivity, that's something you could disclose to your employer and be like, look, I'm really struggling with my relationships and I want them to be good, but like things I'm doing, you're struggling with it. So, that's something that you could go back and forth with your employer about, and maybe they could help um, in mediation with, like, if they see your employer is really struggling with you, they could mediate what's going on between you guys and maybe come to some helpful conclusions or some helpful dialogue. Boss specific, I think. Workflow and tasks, structured, regular check ins. I have never thought of this before, but I was like, oh my gosh, I need that. I need someone to come in and tell me once a week that I'm doing amazing or that I'm messing up. And then that would just take away all my anxiety, because then I know exactly what to do next and how I'm doing. Clear and written instructions. Breaking down large projects. So that's another thing, like, oh yeah, you want to break down a large project? Perfect. It's like, oh no, I actually struggle with that. So if you could break down this large project for me and give me deadlines for each specific thing, I will be very more productive. Timers. Just, I need you to buy me a timer. A good one. Sensory and environment. So noise cancel. Oh, sorry, my spelling mistake. Noise canceling headphones, access to a quiet workspace, adjustable lighting, fidget tools, standing desks, and flexible seating. So I've been in lots of workplaces where the higher up people have bought them standing desks just because they've asked for it and said that they need it. Adjustable lighting. I saw a TikTok and the girl was in a fight with her bosses because she worked in cubicles and she wanted to buy okay, sorry, I need to plug my laptop in really quick. 2 seconds. She wanted to buy, pause this. Okay. I'm just frozen on here and I just want to make sure it's not messing anything up. Okay, I'm coming to the end of this. My next slide is strategies, so I'm going to end this recording just because my laptop's being a little funky. End. Why aren't you ending?